Imagine sitting in the front row of the House of Commons, popcorn in hand, witnessing Pierre trading blows with Trudeau, Jagmeet trying to elbow his way into the spotlight in an effort to be relevant. Well, grab your snacks. This is going to be both important and, let's be honest, a bit entertaining. Now, let's talk about why Pierre and Trudeau are at each other's throats in the first place, especially over these crucial documents. Trudeau's got his NDP Liberal guards up, blocking access to information regarding any investigation, and the whole ArriveCan app debacle costing us $60 million at least. Then, as if we're watching a tennis match, Trudeau tries to put it back on the Conservatives, suggesting they have skeletons in their closet too. Pierre, not missing a beat, asks Trudeau, "Will you vote for the motion to release these documents, yes or no?" Trudeau's come back, basically, "Let's focus on real issues, Pierre." Yeah, as if the Prime Minister committing crimes aren't real issues, right?
According to the RCMP Commissioner, he not only refused to be questioned in the SNC-Lavalin criminal investigation and in the Aga Khan Billionaire Island investigation, but he blocked key cabinet documents from being included in those investigations. We now know that an app that was supposed to cost $80,000 went up to $60 million after the NDP helpfully voted for those extra funds. We don't know who criminally benefited from that. So once again, will the Prime Minister waive cabinet confidentiality, turn over all the documents, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Leader of the Opposition's digging into the past to try and bring up things that were settled many years ago. But if he really wants to talk about the past, he should talk about the fact that the Conservative leader was at Transport Canada working hand in hand with the minister as the founders of the company involved in ArriveCan were getting millions of dollars in contracts from the department he was working for. Mr. Speaker, we are taking seriously any concerns around procurement. The authorities are looking into it. There will be consequences for anyone who took care of our COVID protection efforts to get themselves rich.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That answer proves again that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. We know that after 8 years of this Prime Minister, the cost of everything has gone up, in part because he's given away money for nothing. In ArriveScam, an app that was supposed to cost $80,000 was actually how much? $60 million at least, and counting, because the Auditor General says she doesn't have the documentation to do the full calculation. Today, though, we have a common sense Conservative motion that requires the Prime Minister release the full cost of the app and recover the money for Canadians within the next 100 days. Will he vote for that common sense motion? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see the Leader of the Opposition choosing to fling mud on a question that I've said is unacceptable. The authorities are looking into it. But he doesn't want to talk about the housing investments that we're making across the country. He doesn't want to talk about the fact that he voted against dental care that seniors are going to be benefiting from as of May. He doesn't want to talk about childcare. He doesn't want to talk about Ukraine. He doesn't want to talk about all the things where Conservatives are out of line with Canadians. We're going to continue focusing on the things that matter to Canadians every single day.
Moving on, Jagmeet Singh here, he tries to jump into the fray. He tries to stand up, claiming that unlike other parties, the NDP isn't in the pockets of big corporations. But Trudeau, of course, brushing off Singh like he's last week's lunch. It's a bit sad, really, seeing Jagmeet strive for relevance in a conversation dominated by these guys. But it does make you wonder about the influence of corporate money in politics and why Jagmeet keeps holding Trudeau in power.
Burnaby South.
You Democrats have long said that corporate greed is driving up the cost of living. It's also hurting our healthcare system. Galen Weston's Shoppers Drug Mart, which the corporate-controlled Conservatives love, is now ripping off our healthcare system. That means more money in the pockets of Galen Weston and less money for frontline healthcare workers. Yeah. Why does the Prime Minister continue to let Galen Weston get richer while Canadians can't get the healthcare that they need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'll let the Leader of the Opposition answer to why he has a high-profile lobbyist sitting within his caucus meetings for Galen Weston. We're focused on creating more competition for lower prices, more choice, and more innovative products and services for Canadians. Our government recently passed new legislation that empowers the Competition Bureau to hold grocers accountable and prioritize consumers' interests. The fall economic statement also cracks down on predatory pricing, and I urge all parties to vote in favour.
Then I have Député de Burnaby South.
To choose between both parties controlled by corporations. Monsieur le Président, le Premier ministre a accordé.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gave more than $4 billion to the Northvolt factory, which is a project with severe environmental risks and no economic benefits before 2037. Before committing to spending so much money, did the Prime Minister have environmental assessments carried out? Or did he just listen to his CEO friends? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, this is the largest private investment in the history of Quebec. This is a company that is not only creating jobs, but also the products of the future. We will have to continue fighting climate change and protect our environment. We are doing that hand in hand with the government of Quebec, hand in hand with companies like Northvolt, where they are building careers, our future, and the fight against climate change all at once. I expect that the NDP will understand that building a strong economy and a future for our environment go together.
Now, onto the carbon tax drama. Pierre is going all out, accusing Trudeau of making Canadians cough up more and more for the carbon tax and what they'll get back in the phony rebates. With a planned update up to the carbon tax on April 1st, 2024, Pierre saying it's an April Fool's joke on all of us. Trudeau doubles down and clings to his rebates like a life buoy, and the numbers seem to tell a different story. With Canadians receiving less back than what they pay, the whole thing feels like a math problem gone wrong. And Trudeau isn't good at math.
To axe the tax, this Prime Minister wants to hike the tax. First of all, he wants to quadruple it between now and 2030. And on April 1st, he plans to hike it by 23% with the support of the NDP. The tax hike will be bigger than any increases in the rebate, and therefore people will be bigger, the average families in all the provinces will be bigger net losers under this tax than they were before. With Canadians unable to eat, heat, and house themselves, will the Prime Minister cancel his plan to hike the tax on April 1st?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I do believe this might be one of the first times the Leader of the Opposition has ever recognized that there is a Canada carbon rebate that he is going to cancel. Checks that he will prevent from delivering to Canadians right across the country. 8 out of 10 Canadians households get more money than they pay in carbon pricing in the provinces in which they apply. In Alberta, $1,800 a year to a family of 4, $1,200 a year in Manitoba. Even in Ontario, $1,120 to a family of 4 in Ontario. That's money in their pockets that he wants to take away.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, I'm glad he mentioned his phony rebates, because $1,800 in Alberta is the rebate. That's what he said. You heard him. Here's the gross cost, $2,943. So he's going to take away $2,943, but give back $1,800, and then ask you to be thankful for it, Mr. Speaker. Isn't that just proof that the carbon tax is just like him, not worth the cost?
Yep.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer himself recognized that the $1,800 in rebate that we're sending, for example, to a family of 4 in Alberta is more than that family of 4 costs with the price on pollution. That is the calculation that is done right across the country that shows that 8 out of 10 families are better off with the Canada carbon rebate than they pay in the price of pollution. pollution in areas in which it's brought in. We are both fighting climate change and delivering more money to households across the country, money that he wants to take away.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer report is in my hands. Page 3 of a distributional analysis of the federal fuel charge under the 2030 Emissions Reduction Plan. Google it. Look it up. It's on the Parliamentary Budget Officer's website. You don't have to believe me, and you certainly don't want to believe him. Go look for yourself. The average Ontario family will pay $1,674 in carbon taxes next year. That's $630 more than they get back in rebates. So why doesn't the Prime Minister Google it, look up the report, check the facts, and axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Finally, Trudeau, of course, tries to get out of this by saying, on the face of it, which, of course, Pierre mocks heavily after this. Trudeau and his minions keep stopping the report being put on the record for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe because they don't want the truth to be told. And of course, Trudeau then tries to counter by linking the carbon tax to all the wildfire prevention and climate change and everything possible. But Pierre and no Canadian is having any of it. Like watching two kids in the sandbox, except for these two kids are running the country, and the sandbox is our future.
Mr. Speaker, the first and base conclusion.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the first conclusion of the Parliamentary Budget Officer is, in the math, on the face of it, 8 out of 10 families get more back through the price on pollution, through the Canada carbon rebate. The reality is, if one wants to talk about longer-term and broader economic consequences of a price on pollution, you have to talk about the cost of inaction. You have to talk about the benefits of investing and innovating in carbon reduction technologies. That's the full picture that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't want to look at, because he doesn't think you can build a strong economy and fight climate change at the same time.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's doing neither at the same time. Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary budget, first of all, I should catch that word. He said, on the face of it. Carbon tax is terrific. Well, the parliamentary budget officer actually did the calculation of the full fiscal and economic cost for the average family. And he found that every family in the middle class is worse off under the carbon tax. For example, in Ontario, the net cost for the average family above and beyond rebates is $627 this year. How are they going to pay for that?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, families in Ontario are going to be getting a Canada carbon rebate worth $1,120 this year. That's a family of 4. A family in Nova Scotia, $824. A family in Saskatchewan, $1,500 this coming year. And that is more for 8 out of 10 families than the price on pollution actually is. We are fighting climate change. We are innovating and creating jobs of tomorrow. And we're putting more money in the pockets of Canadians, checks that Leader of the Opposition would take away.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, here's a very simple way to measure it up. Right here from the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report. The total gross cost of the carbon tax in Ontario is $1,674 for this coming year. $1,674. $1,674. $1,674. How much is the rebate?
That's a good question.
With record-setting wildfires last year, with floods, with climate.
Good suggestion, the Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, with record-setting wildfires across the country, with droughts, with floods, Canadians know the costs of the impacts of climate change. The Leader of the Opposition has no plan to fight climate change. He's not proposing anything except, Mr. Speaker, to pull away both the price on pollution, which forces polluters to pay right across the country, that puts more money through checks that arrive 4 times a year in Canadians' pockets in the jurisdictions where there is a carbon price. We have a plan to fight climate change and put money in people's pockets. He has no plan.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Whoa, he doesn't need to get angry about it. Just asking some numbers here.
Just some numbers.
Right? So he was very anxious to talk about these wonderful rebates up until a moment ago. And now he doesn't want to say a thing about it. He even gave him a fancy new name. I'm going to say it again. In Ontario, the gross cost of the carbon tax is $1,674 for the average family. $1,674. How much is the rebate?
Just the number. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He suggests that I don't have to get angry about climate change. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are worried and angry about climate change. They see the wildfires cutting across this country last summer that are already started up in Alberta. He sees the droughts. They see the floods. They have no plan. Their plan is to withdraw the 4 times a year checks that land in the bank accounts of Canadians, that the Parliamentary Budget Officer demonstrates gives more money to 8 out of 10 families right across the country in jurisdictions where it's applied. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan. He doesn't.
Wait. Relax. So, what did we learn from diving into this debate? Well, beyond the jabs, the dodges, and the sometimes petty comebacks, there's a real conversation happening about accountability, environmental policy, and the impact on everyday Canadians. It's a lot to take in, and honestly, as a Canadian without a panel of experts to back me up, I'm just trying to make sense of it all. But it's clear, staying informed and critically analyzing our leaders and their actions is, of course, more crucial than ever. Thanks for sticking around for this breakdown, and remember, keeping engaged and asking tough questions is how we ensure our politics stays fair and transparent as possible. Catch you in the next video. You've been served the news. Bye.